Good morning, class, the receiving schools and teachers.
Good morning, Mrs. Watagas.
How are you all this morning?
We are very well, thank you. And how are you this morning?
Very well, just like you all, thank you. You may be seated. Now let's look back to our previous lesson on advantages and disadvantages of using a pillowcase. What is good and what is not good about using pillowcases. If I can have Tricia, just give us one advantage of using a pillowcase.
So the pillow would not get dirty.
Very good, thank you. Helen, one disadvantage, please. One disadvantage of using a pillowcase.
If you don't use a pillowcase, the pillow will smell.
Very good, thank you. Now, I'd like us to have a look at that picture. The picture we have on the screen. And Brandon, if you can tell us what that picture is about. Who is that?
A carpenter needing a tube.
Okay, it's a picture of a carpenter. Carrot, if you can tell us what a carpenter does. What is the work of a carpenter? What is the work of a carpenter?
He builds buildings and maintains buildings.
Okay, he builds and maintains buildings. Very good. Now, a carpenter needs tools to help him to build and maintain buildings. He cannot just build, or he cannot just maintain whatever needs to be maintained and whatever needs to be built. He has to have what? Tools. He has to have tools to help him in whatever he wants to do. Ayano, if you can tell us the type of tools, just one, that a carpenter needs to help him.
A hammer.
Very good, thank you. William?
Nail.
Good. Messi?
Saw.
Saw. Okay, we have Alois here. Another?
Nails.
Right. So, and many more. Those are some of the tools that a carpenter needs to help him to carry out whatever work that he needs to do. Now, likewise, a seamstress is a woman who sews for a living. A seamstress is a woman who sews for a living. She needs tools or equipment just like the carpenter to help her in whatever she wants to sew. Now, we will be looking at sewing equipment and what each of these sewing equipment are used for. Just like the carpenter who needs tools to help him to build and maintain buildings, a seamstress who needs tools or equipment to help her in her sewing, and not only the seamstress but everyone everywhere needs tools or equipment to help them in whatever they want to sew. Now, I'd like us to have a look at what I have here. I have something here with me. It's one of the equipment that a person needs to help him or her in sewing what he or she wants to sew. Now, if I can have the first group to tell us what this equipment is. First group, if you can all together tell us what this first equipment is. Scissors, okay, it's a pair of scissors. Okay, scissors. We have the other. Second and third group, if you can tell us what these are. These are some of the equipment that the person who wants to sew needs to. Second and third group. Okay, taking pins. Okay, taking pins. Now let's have group 4. What I have here with me, another lot of equipment that is needed in sewing. Together? Needles. Good. Thank you. Needles. Needles. Okay, I have the fifth group. The next equipment that is needed in sewing. Fifth group, thread, a reel of thread. Because it's on a reel, it is a thread. It's on the reel, so we say a reel of thread. But actually, it's the thread that's used. Sixth group. I have this one. Sixth group. I can't hear you. If you can speak up. A tape measure, okay? A tape measure is another equipment needed for sewing. Tape measure. Let's see. Last group, group 7. It's just like this, but it's a bit different from a reel of thread, normal thread used for sewing. Okay, it's called embroidery thread. Okay, I'd like everybody to say that together. Embroidery thread. Again, embroidery thread. So there are two types of thread. One is a normal thread for sewing, and embroidery thread is for putting some designs and whatever patterns on clothes or whatever that needs to be made to look beautiful. Now, all these things, just like a carpenter who uses a saw, that saw has its use. The saw is used for, let's have the first three groups. What is the saw used for? What does the carpenter use the saw for? For cutting timber or whatever needs to be cut. So this tool saw has its uses. Just like all this equipment for sewing, they all have their uses. Now let's see the scissors. Scissors. We will all work together to do the first one, scissors. What is a scissors, pair of scissors used for? Cutting timber? No, we are not talking about saw. For cutting, okay, group 6 and 7 for cutting material. Okay. For cutting material or fabric. Cutting material or fabric. Now in your groups, you will be doing one activity. We've already done the first one, a pair of scissors. And together in your groups, you will be doing an activity. If I can have every one of you to read that together.
In groups, identify the uses of each of these equipment and list them.
Okay, we've done one already as example, a pair of scissors. I left piece of papers already on your desk, and I'd like you to gather in your group, quickly have you have the list of equipment, and next to it you have the uses. So pair of scissors, we've done that together. You will work on pins, needles, thread, and tape measure. Put it together, listen. You just talk about it together and get it done quickly, okay? No, just use pen. Use your pen to write out your answers or whatever you come up with. That's okay. If you want to write in pens, marker, you can do that. Talk about it together quickly and write down. We've already done scissors, so you do the other four. What are pins used for? Pins, taking pins. What are they used for? Okay, just write the names of the equipment down and the uses quickly. While Alois here is getting that done, you others should be talking about it. What are taking pins used for? What are needles for? Thread and tape measure. Okay, I did not put the embroidery thread, as we don't use embroidery thread for actual sewing of the fabric. While one is getting that done, the rest of you should be discussing about. So once he finishes, he quickly gets that done. Please, what taking pins are used for? The needles, thread, and tape measure. Okay, just use pen to write it. While he's doing that, you should be talking about what each of those equipment are used for. Leave out scissors, as we've done that already. you will realize that embroidery thread is not on as, we don't use it for the actual sewing of fabric. When we want to do some decorations, that's where we use embroidery thread, okay? While Violet is getting it done, the rest of you should be, yeah, thank you, discussing about the uses of each of those equipment, so she quickly gets them down. The scissors, we've done that already as an example, so leave that one out. Yep. Okay. Just write it, yeah. You all talk about the rest quickly. So once she's finishing the other one, she goes to the next. So pins, what are they used for? Then you go quickly to the next one. You can't say needling. What do you say? You said something there. Gail. Needle is used for. Boys, try. Think about it. Needle. Where are you now? You okay? So just move quickly. I have to have probably about 2 people for presentation. Okay, needles. So while he's writing, you talk about it, okay? All of you, the 5 of you, talk about it. So once he finishes, you tell him, okay, needles are for this, and he writes it. Threads for this, so he does it instead of he finished writing and then you all want to talk about it. That takes time. Okay. Where are you now? Yeah, you have to move your hands quickly because. You're still on the first one. Which one are you on now? The second one is. Oh, thank you. Okay, good. So get ready. I'll be getting you to present you. You're on the thread and tape measure. Okay, good. You're already finishing first group. Second.
Thread is for sewing the material together. For sewing the material together.
Measure is used for measuring the measurement.
Yeah.
You're on the last one.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I will collect them later, so you have your names written down, but you get ready to present your paper. Okay, if I can have the groups 3 and 4, group 3 and 4, to share with us what they have for the uses of each of those sewing equipment. Group 3. Group 3. You come this way. You come. Okay.
The pins, its use is to hold the material together, and the needles for sewing, thread to stitch the material together, tape measure to measure the material.
Very good. Thank you, group 3. Let's say group 4. Group 4. Oh, that's okay. You can read. You can read from that one.
The use for a needle is stitching. The use for a pins is marks the material. Use for a thread is holds the materials. Use for a tape measure, measuring materials.
Very good. Thank you. Now to the receiving school teachers, please collect in your students' work on the uses of the sewing equipment so you are able to know whether they have done it correctly or not. We will go through the answers together at the end of the lesson after we've come through the uses of each of the sewing equipment. Now, we have homework, and you will be doing this over the weekend. You start today, as it says you have to do it in groups. That also goes to the receiving schools with their teachers. This is homework for the weekend. And if you can, teachers can just get done, copy down what the students have to do for the weekend. I'd like the model class to read together what it says for homework.
In your group, discuss and write out an action plan to make a pillowcase.
Right. An action plan is actually talking about the steps, how certain things are to be made. And in here we are talking about pillowcase. So over the weekend, you will start today at lunchtime. Whenever you have free time together in your groups, you discuss about the steps that you can take in sewing a pillowcase. Now, to guide you, if I can have you all, to guide you, I have 4 steps that you can take. 4 steps. 1, you write down the size of the pillowcase. The size of a pillowcase. We may all come up with our own sizes, so it will depend on what you and your friends come up with. 2, resources needed. Resources are materials that you need for sewing the pillowcase. 3, where the resources will come from. The things that you need, where are they going to come from? Where will you get them from? And 4, the steps involved in making the item. Now, what is our item, class? What is our item? Pillowcase. So together with your friends, you discuss about how a pillowcase is made. To the receiving school teachers, if you can also have the steps done for your children to use. Now, I have a sample to help you. Here it says, sample action plan to make a bamboo cassette holder. One size of a bamboo cassette holder is 50 centimeters long. Second, resources needed. You see all the resources. There are some more, but these are some examples of that. 3, where the resources will come from. Here it says school will buy them for the students to use, but you may have other ways. And 4, we just have the first 3 steps that is taken in making a bamboo cassette holder. Now you will do something like this for number 4 when you are doing your action plan on the pillowcase. Teachers in the receiving schools, please make sure you have this for our students for their homework over the weekend. Now, you were given a brainstorming activity on the uses of each of the equipment. And this time we will be going through quickly at the uses of all those sewing equipment. That there are many of them, but what we have are the ones that we will be using for our project, the pillowcase. And the first two we have are pins and needles. Pins and needles. I'd like groups 4 and 5 to read together the uses of pins and needles. 4 and 5 together.
Pins are used to hold pieces of electricity which you cut or sew them. Needles are used to take thread in and out of the fabric.
Good, thank you. The next is scissors. We have it already, but let's read what it says. I'd like group 1 only to read the first sentence of the uses of a pair of scissors. First group. Scissors are used basically for cutting. Tape measure. Let's have groups 3 and 7. Groups 3 and 7, tape measure. A tape measure is used for measuring. Now those are some of the what? Equipment and their uses. How those different equipment are used in sewing generally. But what we are looking at are the equipment once again that we will be using in making the pillowcase. Now, to the receiving school teachers, for further information on the sewing equipment and their uses, I'd like you to refer to Home Economics for Papua New Guinea, Book 1. Home Economics for Papua New Guinea, Book 1. You will use that. In there you'll have more information on the sewing equipment and their uses. Okay, now, so in sewing, once again, in sewing, just like a carpenter that needs his tools like hammer and saw to help him in his work, anybody who wishes to sew anything also needs tools or equipment to help him or her to sew whatever he or she wants to sew. Because without the equipment or tools, we cannot do any sewing. We can't do any sewing unless we have the correct tools or equipment to sew whatever we want to sew. I'd like every one of us, class, to read together what it says for the next lesson.
In the next lesson, we will identify stitches to be used in making the pillowcase. Observe demonstration on the back stitch and sew samples.
Okay, to the receiving schools, there are about three activities that we will be doing in the next lesson. Firstly, identifying stitches, the basic stitches that will be used in sewing the pillowcase. There will be also observation on the demonstration on how to sew the stitch called the back stitch, and also the students will sew samples of the stitch, back stitch. Now, to you are the receiving school teachers, I'd like you to make sure your students come with the equipment that is needed for sewing in the next lesson, and they also have to come with a piece of fabric or piece of material that will look like this size. So your students should come with a piece of fabric this size, and it is 15 centimeter by 10 centimeter, 15 centimeter by 10. This piece of fabric, they will be using it to sew their samples of the back stitch. Now class, read for us what our key word is for this lesson.
Names and uses of sewing equipment.
Names and uses of sewing equipment. So how many sewing equipment did we look at this morning?
5.
There are about 5. Violet, what are pins used for? What are pins used for? What are pins used for?
For holding the materials together.
For holding the material together. Thank you. Shane, what are needles used for? What are needles used for?
For sewing.
Very good, thank you. Teresa, what is a reel of thread? Actually, the thread. What is a piece of thread used for? Good, thank you. We have our friend next to Trisha. What is a tape measure used for? A tape measure.
To measure the material.
Very good, thank you. Now, to the receiving school teachers, I hope you have all got the message in what material or resources you should have ready for the next lesson. And with that, good morning, everyone. Have a good day and a safe and blessed weekend. Thank you all. You may sit down.